back to Secondhand Sellers, where we talk about all things thrift, resale, and secondhand. I'm Sarah.
I'm Clayton.
Thanks for joining us again this week. We have kind of a different topic. I haven't really seen anybody talk about this topic this way anyway. And today's topic is why you should have a no-spend month for your resale business. Now, some of you may be familiar with the concept of no spend in personal finance. That's where you see it mostly. That's where you take a month. Sometimes it's a year. Some people do like extreme no spends and it's a year. Sometimes people do it for a week, and it's where you take a step back from spending to sort of reflect on your finances and to use the things that you already have. And actually, Hannah and I did this recently with Keeled Overstock in January. We took a pause on sourcing. So we had a number of things that we had not listed yet, things that we were getting rid of that we hadn't listed, also things that we had purchased with the intent of selling for our business that we hadn't listed. And when you have that pile there, it's money just sitting there, money that you've spent a lot of times that is just sitting there.
Yeah, we all as resellers do it. We have the death pile that we need to tackle, but what if we get that really good deal at Goodwill, because Goodwill is having stuff on sale right now, and stuff gets into the Goodwill every single day. Gotta go check it. Maybe it's got something. So you did this for your business for an entire month.
In January. Yeah, we kind of did it in tandem with a no spend personally. So the way we did no spend, it isn't a literal we spend nothing.
Yeah.
It's we cut back categories or heavily restrict categories that are excessive. So in January, for our personal finance piece, we cooked at home most of the time because eating out can be a category where we overspend in. And also we were trying to use up a lot of the food that we had on hand. We tend to have a well-stocked pantry and a well-stocked freezer. So we were trying to eat down the items that we already had. So we also sort of restricted the kind of grocery shopping we did, because that also, it's easy to be in the store and get things that you don't necessarily need
all the time
when you have things at home that you could be eating.
All the time.
So it was a month of reduction and reflection and just a reset, really. We used it as sort of a reset after the holidays. A lot of people do that in January because December is such an expensive month for most people in the Western world. You've got Christmas, you've got New Year's. If you pedal back a little bit, you've come out of Thanksgiving. So it's just boom, 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 boom. And it can be very expensive time of year, the fall. So in tandem with that, we looked at our business. Like I said, we had this pile of things that we hadn't addressed yet, and Hannah and I took the month of January to list and not source. I can't remember if we didn't buy. I feel like we didn't really buy anything in January, or if we did, it was very, very minimal. And we did get through most of our backlog in January. There were a few things, some clothes, some vintage clothes and stuff that we still haven't gotten to, but overall it was very helpful, and it did boost our number of listings. So we set a goal of like 300 listings. We didn't make that goal, but by setting that and then using that in tandem with this idea of we aren't going to go buy things to list, we're going to list what we have, we really did move through that pile and get that number up, even though we fell short of our goal.
Yeah. And another thing I found setting a goal for how many listings you have active, what happens is eBay's algorithm goes, oh, this customer is actually listing a bunch of stuff. And then what happens is customers buy your old stuff that you already have listed.
Because you just have more views.
Because you have more views, you're putting out more items, and so it's really hard to hit a number target. But yeah.
But you can, it's a moving target. Ideally, you want it to be a moving target. Because if you go a whole month and it's just easy breezy to hit that target, it means you haven't sold much. So we were working with a moving target, and I still want to get up to that 300 mark and higher, because the more you have listed, the more sales you make.
Yeah.
But that's just kind of what we did in January. It worked pretty good to clean out that backlog. And then we started up in February with some more sourcing. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but for a lot of resellers, or at least people like me, resellers like me, the sourcing is some of the most fun part of it.
Oh, by all means.
So,
Sourcing is the most
it's so fun. And a lot of us got into reselling, and we've talked about this. It's been a long time now, I think. Quite a few episodes ago, because we're in the 20s of episodes now. But early on, I talked about that's sort of how I got into reselling to begin with. I was already a thrifter. I already went to estate sales and secondhand shops and thrift stores for my personal life. And so that kind of became a segue into
how you're already selling
into
stuff.
resale. And so it's easy to buy. It's much more work. And the most of the business work isn't in the going to the thrift store, hitting that estate sale. It's in sitting down and doing the boring part of taking those photographs, writing those listings, and hitting publish. So I think this is a good practice, especially if you have a huge backlog. And for some of you out there, a month was good for us to try to catch up most of our stuff. Some of you may want to do a couple of months of this or every other month of this. And I would suggest now is a great time to do it. It's currently March. We're still in those early months of the year. Peak garage sale season for most of the country. I know some of you live in warm places, but for a good swath of at least the US, now is not prime garage sale time. It's not prime estate sale time.
2 more months. And then it's going to be really good prime time.
And so now is a great time to take that time to step back and reduce your business spending if you have a large backlog.
So I did not intentionally go, I'm a no spend for my business. But for January, I said, I cannot source. I just intentionally said, I have to catch up on some listings.
It's the same concept.
Yeah, basically. I said I want to hit more than 100 listings, which is what I try to shoot for in general every month. But with January, I did it a little more intentional where I said every day I'm going to shoot for 5 items, which would come out to being 150 items for the month. And I don't remember if I actually hit that or not, because I had a couple of days where I didn't list. I had other days where I listed like 10 or 15 items. I think I did for January hit that target, but I surpassed it, I think. And so it was basically the same thing, just different name. I actually hadn't been thrifting till recently. It was a couple weeks ago. We went out, did some thrifting, and it was like, oh my gosh, I haven't been to a thrift store in ages. And thankfully, with that stuff, I took a different approach to it, because normally I get stuff, and where does it go?
In the pile.
In the pile. And then it's just like, oh my gosh. Instead, I took that stuff, I cleaned it or listed it and took care of it. I got it all down to like one item that I haven't taken care of, but it's on my to-do list with the other stuff that I have like on my... this is going to be listed within the week. So it's been taken care of. And the only reason that one piece I didn't, it's the Department 56 that's broken. If you've seen our thrift haul video, you know what I'm talking about. But I just didn't want to deal with pulling out the super glue and patching it up, and it's just been sitting there. I need to do it before it goes out into the garage. But, you know, and doing that where once you get new inventory, you handle the new inventory, and then you move on with your life. Oh, it's so much better.
It is, and I think that's a great point. And we did, because we took that time to catch up with the vast majority of our stock. When February rolled around, we started sourcing again. We were more intentional with how we handled that. So instead of just coming up and being put in the pile, we are trying to clean things or list things before they end up here. And also we purchased Hannah requested, she wanted a physical inventory book.
Mm.
So part of her role now is to mark things in the inventory book when they come in.
That's pretty smart.
So we make sure that we keep track, because we were using a Google Docs. We still are. I often will put them in the Google Docs when I'm listing them. But I'm imperfect. Sometimes I miss it. I don't think about it. Or the doc will lose cells, or I'll accidentally type over them, or whatever. So sort of, because we took that space in January, we started our 2024 sourcing in February. She now has started this physical log, which will become very much in handy next tax season, because it'll definitely be comprehensive. And this includes things that we are purchasing for the business itself outside of stock.
Mm-hmm.
So we write down things like if we buy tape, or if we buy whatever, goes in the back of this inventory, different section. But either way, we did take that time afterwards, going into the next round of sourcing, to sort of recalibrate and reassess how we are running our business, and tweak some things, which is much easier when you're caught up on your stock.
Yeah.
When there's only a few things left over, it's much easier to just, walk in with that. And it also helped, taking that January to catch up, also helped with figuring out inventory in and outs for taxes and that kind of thing too. So, just because of the time of the year it was. So,
is this something that you would look to do maybe like every quarter, a couple times a year, once a year?
I mean, ideally, we won't get behind.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good practice if you get yourself into a situation where you are not keeping up on your stock, your listings, that is. So you have so much more stock coming in than what is being listed. And I think that's always a good time to do it. Now, if you're sourcing 10 things a week and you get those 10 things listed, or drafts up, or however you're doing it, I don't think that's as big of a deal. I mean, you don't really have anything to no spend. You're just not going to have any stock.
Yeah.
But if you're, like, I know the way you sourced, or you've talked about this before, you have very heavy seasonal sourcing. So because you're a big garage saler, you have like a 3 to 6 month window when you do most of your sourcing.
Yeah.
And so by the end of the summer, you've bought so many things that you couldn't possibly have kept up with it all.
Yeah.
And especially with your job and stuff.
I still have backlog from stuff I've sourced for last summer. And some of it I've taken and gone, oh, I shouldn't have bought that. And it's gone into a garage sale box now. And so I'm resourcing and moving stuff around, but it's not at a rate right now where, like, I don't go sourcing on a regular basis right now because I'm trying to catch up. I love going to Goodwill. It's so much fun. But I'd rather catch up on my inventory that isn't listed, get that all taken care of, so that way by the time summer is here and I can go out garage selling, I can just
boom, you're not just digging yourself into a deeper hole.
Yeah.
And so I think when you're talking about, like, when would I look to do it? It's if we get to the point where we have this backlog and we're starting to get buried and we're listing some things that we're getting new, and we've had something sitting there for a couple of months, that I would consider doing this. Yeah. I think early in the year, great time to do it. Partially because of the tax thing, you can catch up on any inventory you bought last year. You know where you stand at the end of the purchasing year last year, because there's no blur, because you haven't been purchasing for any of January. Yeah. So there's no blur between the stock that you bought in 2023 versus the stock we bought in 2024. But people like you, I think it's very individual. So we source all year. We do a lot of thrifting, estate selling, that kind of thing. I do want to get more into the garage selling. Hopefully we'll be bringing you some videos where we go garage selling together this summer. That will be a lot of fun, I think. But in the past, we've not sourced garage sales very much. And so because of that, we have less of a seasonal sourcing. Yeah. Even though estate sales are higher in the summer and you want to go to them more when the weather is nice, it's not as distinctly seasonal. But I think people in your situation, if you have a few months where most of your entire inventory is purchased, you have like a 3 to 6 month period where you purchase all of your entire year's inventory, then it would make sense to have no spend months even, where you're just like, I'm just not even going to source it all in the winter or whatever. It's very individual.
Yeah. So overall, probably a good practice.
I think so.
I would say probably a minimum of 2 times a year.
I think that's probably
mainly because January is a good time to do that reset.
Mm-hmm.
And then we all have that busy season in life.
Mm-hmm.
And then but you don't want to go into the holiday season with your entire monstrosity.
And like August or September, so that you have almost everything listed before Christmas season is like full swing, would be a great idea.
Yeah.
I mean,
and then as stuff goes into the holiday season where it's like, oh, well, I was able to make it to the Goodwill, but I haven't had time to list stuff. It happens, and then you can reset at the beginning of the year, redo it all over again. So.
Yep. And so when I say no spend too, I want to clarify a little bit. It's if we had needed bubble wrap for our business in January, or if we had needed tape or whatever, we would have bought it. It's no spend is not about not getting the things you need, but
it's unnecessary spending.
Yes, and when you have a backlog of things that you've bought and you have not listed, that's sourcing is unnecessary at that point. And so I just wanted to emphasize that no spend is not about literally spending nothing, but it's a taking that time to reflect and only buying the things that you actually need. And so I think it's great too if you feel like you have a buying problem, like you do get a little too caught up in your sourcing. It just gives you a little bit of space, to reflect. And it doesn't have to be a month. Could be 2 weeks. Could be a week even.
Could be till you just catch up with your entire
time. Maybe you have a vacation week coming up and you're like, I'm not going to source during that week and I'm just going to list. Anything like that. Do you have anything to add to that though?
No.
We would love to hear if any of you guys have a similar practice where you take time and you step back from your sourcing to really catch up on you call it the death pile.
No.
So that you don't get drowning in inventory. Put that below. We would love to hear from you. Or if you have any other no spend experiences, we'd love to hear your suggestions on that. So thanks again for joining us this week. Come back next week for yet another episode of the Secondhand Sellers.
Happy thrifting.
Bye.